Hello, everyone. I think we're live. I'm not sure if we're live. YouTube is usually there's a bit delay between the time I go live and you guys see me. So let me know in the live chat if we're live so that I know everything is okay. I see Mars in the live chat. I see ex-Muslim atheist. I see Shubhan. I see Susanna. I'm getting some weird noises here. Everyone here, somebody tell me if everything is okay and you can hear me? I think you can hear me. I'm just gonna assume you hear me. Okay, Susanna is saying audio is good. Okay, great. So I'm doing a video that I think a lot of people are going to get notified about because I'm using the Holocaust as in the title, and I'm mentioning Holocaust, and YouTube doesn't like it when you mention the Holocaust because a lot of people there's a lot of conspiracy theories around this. So I'm pretty sure most of the people that are going to be in the live chat today are people that I don't know, see my posts on Facebook or Twitter. But today's live chat, I think it's not going to be as busy because most people, this is like a hot topic, huge red flag for YouTube, which is sad, I guess, that we can't address these topics. So please share these. This is not going to get suggested in anyone's videos. I mean, it might, but not as much. But so please share this. Anyway, so why am I discussing about this? Discuss this today because a lot of people think like I'm gonna say today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, but people are like, no, I mean that was January 20. When was it? January what? January 27, right? But but you're wrong because it's also that's not the only Holocaust Remembrance Day. Okay, that's the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. There are some other countries that have different Holocaust Remembrance Day, but the most important one is Israel. Today, I mean, for Israel yesterday. Actually, I think for Israel, it starts on April 20th and ends in April 22nd. So even in Israel right now, but I think it moves. But I just know in Israel today or yesterday, depending on the time zone. Well, I mean in Israel it was yesterday, but April 20th is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and a lot of people don't know why Israel has a different Holocaust Remembrance Day than the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I actually went to Israel. By the way, that was one of the best trips I ever had. If I had a lot of money, I would be going. Well, if I had more money, you don't need a lot of money, but if I had more money, I would have gone to Israel every year. Every year, that was the most fun, interesting, educational trip I ever had. And if you can go to Israel, and if you're interested in history, go to Israel. But my friend there, the person that was volunteered to host us, to guide us, to show us around, Amir, which is I'm so glad that we met him. He was so generous. He educated us so much. By the way, I recorded all of this and I'm supposed to release everything I learned in Israel. Some of it came out, but most of it has not yet been published. The reason is we keep struggling to find the time and resources to edit these and to get the time get these out. And I always try to get them out, but I was supposed to get them out this month, some more, but then this whole COVID-19 stuff happened and we're struggling financially. So I need to figure out ways that we could come back. So by the way, if you want to support us financially, if you're financially comfortable, link is in the description. But I have so many videos from Israel that I want to get out at some point, hopefully one day, insha iblis. But so I learned why the days were different. Why Amir told me why me and Drew from Genetically Modified Skeptic, he was there with me. It was really fun hanging out with him as well. And he told us, I don't know if Drew was with me when he told us this. The reason, okay, so here's what happened in Israel after the Holocaust, and you had like Israel as a new baby country. At those times, a lot of the Jews in Israel didn't really want to remember the Holocaust because the Holocaust was shameful. So the whole point, like Israel is built on the idea of strength idea that we are powerful, we are united, we are a powerful nation. We were being wronged for so many years and decades and centuries, and that we're not gonna take it anymore. We're gonna fight back, right? And the Holocaust was a shameful part of history that this is not right now, but at those times was something that raised a lot of questions for a lot of Jews in Israel and everywhere else. And the question was, why didn't the Jews fight back? Right? Why were we so weak? Why were we just following, there were so many Jews and not that many examples of rebellion or retaliation or fighting back. And it seemed like this was a humiliating thing to remember or wanting to highlight. It's very strange to think about it right now, given how everyone wants to remember the Holocaust, and Israel especially has so much resources focused on remembering the Holocaust. So it's to me that it was shocking to learn that there was a time that Israel really didn't want to talk about the Holocaust. Like, it seems such a complete the opposite of what we have today. So I don't know. There was a time that something switched. There was a mention of these people that survived the Holocaust coming and talking on the radio, and it was being broadcasted. It just switched everyone's way of looking at the Holocaust. But I don't want to focus on that. But what I want to focus on is that in Israel, eventually, when they came around to realizing that they have to remember the Holocaust and they have to highlight it, the day that they picked was a different day than the international one. So the international one was picked, I think, by the United Nations. Is that right? Yes. It was picked by the United Nations, and it was the reason why was it January 21st? I think it was the day that the Red Army, let me just make sure, the Red Army liberated the camps. I think so, yeah. Yeah, that was the day that the Red Army, here, let me read this right now just to make sure I'm not giving you guys bad information. Marked this of the liberation of the Nazi concentration camp and the end of the Holocaust was earlier. So wait, yes, okay. I think that was it the Red Army that first got there? Yes. It was liberated by the Red Army. Okay, yeah. So that's the that it picked. But the reason why Israel picked another day was because it's they didn't want to use the day that they were liberated by somebody else. They picked the day that is today. I don't know if it's like if it moves around a little bit or is it still, but I think the day that they picked here, I'm going to read it. It was a day that there was an uprising in the Warsaw ghetto. There was the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. So it's a day that they picked that the Jews actually fought back. Like one of the examples. Yeah, let me read this. The date relates to both the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, which began 13 days earlier, and to the Israel Independence Day, which is 8 days later. So the Jews wanted to pick a day that they actually show some strength, and they showed some, against their oppressors. So that's why the difference. But anyways, let's get to the actual topic at hand. Before I mention it, I came up with the story, and it's probably a bad story, but it makes my point. It's not a very good story, but I just came up with it in like 5 minutes. And even if it's not that good of a story, you're gonna see why I'm telling you this story pretty soon. Okay, and it's a made up story. Okay, so we have this guy that's a somewhat religious guy, and he has a son, and his son goes to war. and he has a picture of his son, and he's always waiting for him to come back. And he has this picture. He has like put the picture, the frame, on a table, and he looks at the picture almost every day. He lights candles next to it. He puts his religious scripture next to it, and he like prays next to it and all of that, right? And he's just waiting for his son to come home one day. He's and this guy has a neighbor, and this neighbor see this guy, this holy man, as a religious figure that he admires and he follows. And he always comes to his home, and he sees the guy that he puts candles next to the picture, and he always like prays to it and stuff. But he doesn't ask him much about it, right? And one day this guy gets sick and he's on his deathbed, and his son hasn't come home yet, and his neighbor is taking care of him. And he's about to die, and he holds his neighbor's hand, and he points at the picture, and he says, "Don't forget him. Take care of him," right? And he dies. So when he dies, the neighbor keeps on lighting candles next to the picture. He keeps on praying next to the picture. He gets some other people to come and do the same thing, and he gets a little bit obsessive over it. Some people bring gifts to the picture. More and more people come around the picture and pray to the picture. And then starts coming up with some rules, and he says, when you come into the house, make sure your head doesn't ever go above the picture. Bow before the picture. Don't ever turn your back against the picture. And one day the son comes home, and he sees all these people around the picture, and all these candles all over the house, and people bringing food, and people bringing gifts, and so many people bowing to the picture. And it's his picture, and people bringing gifts, and there's a lineup. And then he goes and he sees a neighbor, and he says, like, "Where's my dad? Why is my picture there? What's happening here?" And the neighbor hits him over the head, and he's, "Bow down, you infidel." And the point of the story is, I know it's not a very good story, right? But the point of the story, I mean, I'm not going to tell you the point of the story. I think you know the point of the story. We have this Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I think a lot of people have missed the point of remembering, knowing why the point of remembering the Holocaust, right? I mean, even, I don't know if you guys saw the thumbnail that I picked for this video. It has like it said, what does it say? The thumbnail said, like, remember the death of 6 million Jews, right? So even when we're trying to remember the Holocaust, apparently remembering the Holocaust means forgetting the gypsies, forgetting the gay people, forgetting the handicapped. How many gypsies, let me see, how many gypsies died in the Holocaust? Like not that many people remember the gypsies, right? Or why is it Google not telling me the answer? I don't know. Let's see. Of 500,000, right? So, and another thing is that, like, we have all the Holocaust memorial thing, and it's very important. Again, first of all, let me say why we should. A lot of people might think like I'm actually saying this is going to get a lot of people are going to miss my point and think like I'm trashing remembering the Holocaust. So let me actually start with saying why it's important to remember the Holocaust, and why. So a lot of people might come and say, again, somebody's going to cut this part out and make me look like I'm saying you shouldn't remember the Holocaust. But there are a lot of greater atrocities in the world than the Holocaust, right? So why are we like, I don't know, Mao did a lot worse, Stalin did a lot of worse. But the difference between those and the Holocaust is that there's not a lot of people trying to rewrite the history on those issues, right? I mean, but I'm okay. Okay, so if it was remembering the Holocaust, if it was only the Jews were doing it, like, I would understand. Like, those people would be like, okay, the Jews are remembering it, but why would the whole world would then need to do it? The reason why the whole world needs to do it is because more people are attacking the history of Holocaust than many other examples in, like, atrocities in history, right? Like, people are not going out there, I mean, they are, but not as much, trying to rewrite history on what Mao did or what Stalin did, right? So the reason why we need to defend the history of Holocaust is because of all the attacks on it, right? And why is it important to remember history? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but in case some people feel like, oh, it's in the past, why are we why we're obsessing over the past? There's a right way to obsess over the past, and there's a wrong way to obsess over the past. The right way is to realize that any form of progress requires learning. Okay? And any form of learning requires data. When it comes to physics, mathematics, biology, and everything else, not everything else, but many other things, we have, like, for biology, chemistry, we have labs. We have so many things that we could, like, do analysis. We could add factors, remove factors. Mathematics, you don't even need to, like, you have pen and paper, right? You have computer algorithms that does calculations for you. Everything is right in front of you, and there's so much you can manipulate and try to get the right data out, right? When it comes to society, you need data, but you don't have a lab where you could add in Islam, remove Islam, see what differences it make, add communism, add socialism, add capitalism, increase socialism a little bit, reduce capitalism, see what that turns out. And you can't do A/B analysis like that. When it comes to data, when it comes to for societies and what works and what doesn't work, the only data that you have is history. Okay? And the extreme examples in history are even the most important ones, because those are the exact situations where you could learn from the most. So the most valuable tool that you have to make a better future is data from the past. And that's why history is so important. And that's why when people try to rewrite history or forget history, it needs to be defended, right? It's for the sake of progress. And that's why when the history of Holocaust is being attacked so much, it's really important for us to be obsessive, over defending it. So that's the right reason why we should remember things. The wrong way of treating history is becoming obsessive in, trying to hold people accountable for things that they didn't do. I mean, a lot of you already know this, right? Like, hold people today responsible for slavery or for the Holocaust or for things that they didn't do, right? So I think us obsessing over remembering, like, the crimes of the past, a lot of people have gone overboard with that. I mean, which is important to remember them, but a lot of people have taken that to the next step into trying to correct things that happened in the past today in a way that is actually more destructive than helpful. Okay, that's the wrong way of looking at it. The only reason why you should obsess over defending the past is the lessons you learn from it, not for revenge against people that had nothing to do with it. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but it has to be said. All right, so the story that I mentioned, right? I don't know if you guys know. No, I'm not going to mention that story. That's going to take this to a whole other level. But the things that we are not learning, apparently, is the lessons that we're not learning from the Holocaust is the fact that things that are happening around us today, that the people that are obsessing over remembering the Holocaust, rightfully so, are not learning the lessons from it. Like, how many people that remember that every year remember the Holocaust have talked about what's happening in Yemen or what's happening in China? Again, what's happening in China against Muslims, the concentration camps that exist against China. If I please don't say like, oh, Armin, are you the same? When you compare two things with each other, you're not saying they are the same thing. I don't know why I have to say this every time. It seems pretty obvious, okay? Yes, I know the concentration camps in China is not even close, even at all close to what happened in Nazi Germany. Not even close, okay? But it's the closest we have come to that in recent memory, okay? We have concentration camps, and we have 1 million Muslims in concentration camps for the crime of being Muslim. For the crime of being Muslim in China. And how many people that say never forget are constantly focusing on the Holocaust, but not from the lessons that we need to learn from it? When I was in Israel, Amir told me, for example, that one thing that he's upset about is the fact that his country, Israel, doesn't officially recognize the genocide against the Armenians because of the political reason, because of the relation that they have with Turkey. Turkey's genocide against Armenians is another genocide that is being forgotten or rewritten. And why are we not obsessing over remembering that? Again, the reason why we should constantly try to remember the Holocaust, and I defend all the museums, all the remembrance days and stuff, is because the memory of the Holocaust is under attack. But the same is true with the Armenian genocide. If any country should be leading the way into attacking Turkey's war on history, it should be Israel, because they have had the experience with it. They know what it's like for people trying to rewrite their history. That's the whole point of remembering the Holocaust, to remember and to learn from it. You don't remember it just for the sake of remembering it. What's the point of remembering it if you're not going to learn from it and try to apply the useful information, apply it where it's relevant? Why is Israel not, like, for example, now leading the charge against China and be like, we're going to attack this right from the start, because we're not going to wait for you guys to go. We remember where this goes. We remember where this goes. Our people have had this experience. We know what this is like. Yeah, this is what we were preparing for. This whole talk about remembering the Holocaust, this was the point. This was the point. This is why we were remembering it. For a day like this, where we stand up against you, China, for what you're doing. Wouldn't that have been amazing? Well, how much confusion would that create in the Muslim world if Israel was leading the charge against China for the concentration camps? Wouldn't that be amazing? That would be amazing. By the way, guys, I'm post some questions about other things as well if you want, because after I'm done with my monologue, I'm gonna do some Q&A. Wait, let me actually check my notes to see if I covered everything I wanted to say. Yep, my first note is remember the Jews and forget the gypsies. Then I said, yep, I said this one. I already said that one. I already said that one. Yep, I said everything. All right, so what do you guys think about this format? I'll do a short monologue. Wow, this wasn't short at all. I thought I was gonna do a 5-minute monologue and just do a Q&A after, but my 5-minute monologue ended up being 24 minutes. But I'm gonna do it from, like, instead of just doing a live stream with Q&A, I might every time I'll just pick a topic, talk about it for a little bit, and then go do Q&A about anything. What the Q&A doesn't have to be about what the monologue was about, and then just go into live chat and see what you guys have to say about anything. Do you guys like this new format? Vikram is saying, do you think it's a good idea for people to debate Holocaust deniers? For example, Destiny goes on alt-right platforms to debate them often. Yeah, of course. What are we going to do? Ignoring them didn't, like, look, we have ignored people ignored them for so long and they didn't go away and they grew. So that didn't work. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. P is saying it's fine by me. Okay, so guys, let me see. Soha is here saying hi, Armin. Hello. I should have mentioned at the beginning to post your questions because now I have to wait for your questions to show up. So while I wait for your questions to show up, I'm going to say, oh, here, P is saying, do you think of history is written by the victors? Yes and no. I don't think it's a rule. I think there are many examples of it. But, I mean, historians have a way of eventually figuring out the truth. So victors try to rewrite history, and many times they're successful. But the truth will always surface at some point, sooner or later, right? One thing I'm realizing now is that there's very likely that one truth that hasn't gotten out yet, and as people are now digging into it more and more in the past 100 years, or less than 100 years, 50 years, is the history of Islam. And again, there might be nothing there. This might be just a conspiracy theory, but seems like the history of Islam has been rewritten and historians have been just accepting it as truth for a very long time. That's a topic that I'm now looking into more and I'm reading about it more. And and it's so interesting because I don't know, right? I don't know if Muhammad was real or not real. Like, I'm not even leaning one way or another anymore. I'm so confused, and I'm loving this confusion because it's just so mysterious, and digging it and trying to figure out who's has the right information it's just like being lost in a maze. It just remember is I mean, I have this is a fun kind of confusion, right? Because it's just like trying to solve, like you feel like you're lost in a maze and you're trying to find your way out. And I mean, maze work out the other way, but the process is interesting, right? So it's a confusion, but it's just like it feels like detective work, right? So I like not knowing things so that I could enjoy the process of finding it out. Shubham is saying, first question, many Hindu nationalists love Israel and often say that what the BJP and RSS is doing isn't the Pakistanization of India, but the Israelization of India instead. Replies, I would say that's exactly why I'm against Israel politics right now as well. Because right-wing Israeli politics is also the Pakistanization of Israel. So India and Israel are becoming religion. India and Israel are very similar in the sense that they both have an ethno-religion. Unlike Christianity and Islam, Hinduism and Judaism are ethno-religions. And ethno-religions are very useful in the sense that you could promote ethno-nationalism using your religion. So that's actually even stronger than, Pakistan can do that with Islam to promote nationalism, but not ethno-nationalism, because Pakistan is one of the only countries. Well, I think it's the only country. Yeah. Is it the only country? Yeah, the only country that is founded based on, it was supposed to be secular, but then from the very beginning, the foundation process of the country was based on Islam. So, like, Islam is in its identity. Like, it doesn't have any other culture. Pakistan's culture is Islam, right? It's in its DNA, right? So Pakistan can do that with Islam, but not many other. And Iran tried to do that. Iran can't do that with Islam because Islam is not an Iranian thing. But Iran is trying to do that with Shia Islam, to make Shia Islam an Iranian identity, right? And even though we have Shia Islam in other places, Iran is trying to do that with Shia Islam, as in Shia, like Iran is the home and center of Shia Islam, right? So This is the mix of trying to use religion to promote nationalism. Not many other countries can do that. Again, other countries try to do that. Like, for example, Mormons tried to do that by bringing Jesus all the way, flying all the way from Jerusalem to United States. And some evangelical type of people also say like America is like God's chosen country. Other countries try to do that, but they're not very successful at it. Ethno religions are very successful at it because the religion promotes an ethnicity, and if your country wants to promote ethno nationalism, the religion becomes a very powerful tool to do so. And that's why I can see how the right-wing people in Israel and the right-wing people in India admire each other, right? Because they're trying to do the same thing, and they learn from each other. India learns from Israel more so, because Israel is way ahead of them. I like the new format. We need a good name for your monologue portion. Okay, yeah, all right, sounds good. Shubham saying, I had the first question. Yes, you did. Hold on. Where'd it go? The Duke is saying, why do you think that Abrahamic religions are the ones dominating the world? Well, not all Abrahamic religions are dominating the world. It's just Christianity and Islam. And the reason is because they cut the chain of being an ethno religion. It's relevant to what we just said, right? So Judaism was revolutionary for its time because after the Jews got exiled, and went to Babylon, they the reason why the kings at that time, when they conquered a place, they just moved people around by force, is it was the most effective way of social engineering, right? To eliminate a race or a people, you just move them from one city to another, from their home country to another, and they would assimilate. And once they assimilate, their people will be gone, right? And it's interesting because Cyrus the Great from Iran, from ancient Persia, he was one of the revolutionary people that didn't do that. That told people that freed the people, say you build your own temples, practice your own culture, be you, okay, be whatever you want. Why is my microphone acting up? Do you guys hear that thing, or is it just me? Let me know if audio is having a problem. Anyways, when the Jews were forced to go to Babylon, when the Jews were first went to Babylon, and a lot of them, not all of them, the first wave actually did assimilate. The second wave didn't assimilate. Was it the Jews? Yeah, the reason, and they decided to keep their religion. And it's very hard to keep your religion when you're in a foreign country at that time, because gods were local, right? Gods at that time each country had its own gods. And when you left your country, when you left your lands, your gods wouldn't be with you. Like, that's why sometimes when you had Roman soldiers in Egypt, they would think that their gods couldn't hear them, so they were like, okay, who are the gods of this land? Who do I pray to here, right? And so when the Jews were forced to go to Babylon, it was, for them, they were like being separated from their God back in Israel, right? So, but they just try to innovate and come up with a new idea. They for the very first time in recorded history, I'm not saying in history, they separated their God from their land. So they came up with the concept that they could bring their God with them, right? And their religion evolved into something that was based on practice and based on observing the rituals. And that's why the Jews became so obsessed with observing the rituals, because to them this meant that we keep being Jews instead of assimilating. We keep being Jews, we keep our people, we keep our ethnicity, we keep our God, we keep our religion, even in foreign lands. So they were the first people that successfully managed to remain as Jews, even though they were the king, their invaders moved them around, right? By being very obsessed over maintaining all the rituals and keeping their religion and not marrying non-Jews. This is why this is such an important thing for religious Jews, not to marry non-Jews. So this was a divorce of God from land. right? But even though God was divorced, separated from land, the chain of God and land was cut for the first time. The chain of God and ethnicity was not cut yet. God was not tied to Israel anymore. It was still connected to Israel, but it wasn't tied to it. Jews all around the world could maintain their religion, even though they weren't in Israel. And this is why synagogues at some point became very important. But it was still for the Jewish people. But what Christianity then took that to the next step. Christianity was first a Jewish cult, right? But when Paul and then the Romans became Christian, it was Christianity took that to the next step of cutting the next chain between ethnicity and religion. And this is why Christianity became the first truly global religion, and missionary work became such an important thing of conversion. I mean, Jews had examples of conversion, but it was, I mean, there's exceptions for everything, right? But it was nothing compared to what Christianity was like when they managed to completely cut the chain between ethnicity and God, right? And religion. And Islam followed as well. And the reason why Christianity, not when you say Abrahamic religions are the ones dominating the world, it's not all Abrahamic religions, it's just Christianity and Islam, because they managed to cut both of those chains. They freed their God from a land, and they freed their God from ethnicity. And that's why those viruses are a lot more powerful than other religions. And the third biggest one is Hinduism, and that's just because there's a lot of them. That's not because they spread their religion, that's just because there's a lot of Hindus around the world. So I was saying, please like, share, and subscribe. Yes, thank you, Soha. Thank you for that. What should we call contest? What should we call Armin's monologue? Okay, sounds good. Let me know what I should be calling it. Why does everyone ignore Freud and circumcision when it comes to the what? What does it? I don't know what your question means. Can you explain how are these related? Did you keep saying Pakistan has nuclear weapons? I don't think India would wage full-out war against us. Yeah, I don't think so either. Chopin saying it is the only country founded on Islam. Well, originally it was supposed to be secular. Pakistan's supposed to be secular. But if you look at the foundation story as a couple of years, yes, then it is the only country that is founded on Islam. That's why they don't have anything else. Chopin, we have an entire episode on that on secular jihadists. So search for that on secular jihadists. I'm not educated enough for me to speak on it myself. I can tell that there's a lot of similarities between Baha'is and Ahmadis, which I discuss in that episode, which is very interesting. P is saying, I recall AR combos with Sham Sharma and Kushal Mehra. Any plan trying with someone like Reg? Wait, I think I already have had a discussion with this guy. Hold on. Is it the same guy I talked? Did I have this guy? Reg, who? Malhorta? If you guys want to, no, not this guy. If you guys want me to bring somebody on our show, please tag my private Twitter account and their Twitter account at the same time on Twitter, and tell them that they need to come on my show. If they message me, I will message and say I'm interested, but they should also show some eagerness. Like, I can't just be like chasing them forever, right? They have to come and say like, yeah, I'm interested, and they should send me an invite or be like, hey, yeah, let's do something together, or like, oh yeah, please, something like, I don't. If I message like, yes, we're interested, and they're just quiet, I'm not gonna like start begging them to like, hey, what happened? Like, I'm just gonna say a couple of times like, hey, let's make this happen, okay? But the best way is to the best way is to tag me, not Atheist Republic, because Atheist Republic gets too many notifications, so I'm not going to be able to track all of that. Tag my personal account on Twitter at Armin Navabi and them at the same time, and let us know that we need to do something together, and then we'll see where when it goes from there. Anyways, I'm gonna end it here. It's already been 40 minutes. What should we talk about next? Tell me in the comment section what should be the next monologue on. I'm eventually gonna do one on reform, Islamic reform, so that every time somebody asks, so I put all my arguments. Like right now, I realize that I keep talking about Islamic reform, but there's not a single place that all my arguments are in it. I know some of you are tired of me talking against Islamic reform, and you heard everything, but there is not a single place where online that all my arguments are against Islamic reform is in one place, right? There's no place that I have right now. So I'm going to dedicate one of these videos at some point, not now because I'm not mentally prepared for it, because every time I talk about Islamic reform, I lose my mind. But I'm going to make one of these videos, and I'm going to bring every single point that I have against Islamic reform in one video. And every time somebody asks me about it, I'll just like, boom, here's the video. Now go away. All right. Soha's saying, yeah, I was literally typing that. Okay, sure, sounds good. Okay, guys. Love you guys. Oh, by the way, if you're a patron, stay on. I'm gonna call you guys. Susanna, would you be able to stay on for a Skype call with if you're a patron, we have a Skype group where our patrons could get added to that. If you're a patron and you haven't been added to that Skype group, please send me your Skype ID so I could add you to that Skype group, so I can, when I call you guys, you get the call. And if you're interested in hanging out and talking on Skype, we could talk together. And yeah, and if you're not a patron, link is in the description for how to become a patron, so you could have like some Skype calls with each other. But if you're not, but if you, by the way, because of this whole COVID-19 stuff, if you are struggling financially, do not support us financially, please. What are you thinking? Why would you do that? Don't be stupid. Don't support us financially if you're struggling financially. You could support us in other ways. For example, you could hit all the goddamn buttons under this video, all of them except the report one. Okay, every single other one of them. Okay, like if you like the video, hit unlike. If you don't like the video, hit the share, hit the subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the bell button, hit every single one of them. I mean, why, if you're not subscribed, right now, tell me what the hell, where you watched 40 minutes of this video, okay? Why would you not? That means you like our content. So why are you not subscribed? Why? Just comment. Let me know in the description, not in the description, in the comment section, why are you not subscribed? Okay. So apparently people came up with an idea for the monologue. Where is it? Where did it come? A name for it. Where did it go? Sorry. No, I don't like this one. Our monologue is too self-centered. I don't like it. People think I came up with it, and we're like, wow, Armin, really? Vikram is saying, write a book, why there is no Islamic reform, why there shouldn't be an Islamic reform, or why we should fight against Islamic reform. All right. Susanna, are you able to stay around for the Skype call? All right. I guess I'll find out. Oh, wait. Why did I highlight that? All right. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.